All right, so this is the New York City Startup Resources panel. This panel is a panel of serious experts. I say this every time. So I just want to make sure there's going to be 10 minutes of Q&A afterwards. Write down your questions. Make sure to ask these guys because they know. So it's the Digital.NYC panel. It is our very own David S. Rose, CEO of Gus.com. We've got Bruce Weed, Program Director of Big Data and Watson at IBM. And then we've got Eric Gertler, EVP of New York City Economic Development Corporation. So without further ado, I'm just going to pass it to David. I think.
All right. All right, there we go. All right, so greetings, everybody. First of all, I will tell you, we've been doing this Five-Borough Tour around the entire city. We've been in every borough. We've been in places down south. This is the biggest turnout we have gotten for the entire tour. So give yourself a hand. Really blown away and really impressed. So first of all, what you heard the commissioner say about broadband and what broadband has done in terms of evening the playing field and making everything accessible is absolutely true. She was talking about it primarily in terms of access to individuals, access to education, access to resources, information, all kinds of things. But it actually had an even larger effect. And that's not just individual access to things that are out there, it's the effect that the internet had on business. Because if you think about technology, what is technology? Historically, technology was things like chip fabrication plants and large wet labs and giant computer manufacturing facilities. And New York had no tech industry. None. Zippo. Zero. I started my first technology company on 116th Street in 1983. It was called the Computer Classroom, and we did training, early training of people who were using, first of all, those early computers, the Apple IIs and the like, word processing systems in offices. And so that was the entire sum total of the tech world in New York. Red Herring Magazine described me as the patriarch of Silicon Alley, which is very easy when there's no family behind you because there was no tech industry here. So all the tech industry was in California, which was doing chip fab, and in Boston, which had biotech and mini computers and the like. But then what happened? Along came the internet. And the internet was this mass enabler, not just of people, which is critically important, but of businesses. Because now every business, whatever business you're in, if you're a restaurant, if you are a doctor's office, if you are a social network, if you are making things, it is all the internet. And what happened was really amazing. New York City, which had zero in the way of technology, happened to have something else. New York City was the capital of the world when it came to things like advertising, things like media and newspapers, things like finance and industry. And so all of a sudden, when you apply technology to all of these industries for which New York City was the capital, New York City, wham, out of the box became the capital of the financial technology industry, the fashion technology industry, the advertising technology industry, the media technology industry. And now New York City today is the fastest growing tech center in the world, and the second largest in absolute size after Silicon Valley. And this has all happened within my working lifetime. Within our lifetimes, technology has now permeated absolutely everything here. And so the whole purpose of this digital tour, of this Digital.NYC platform you're going to hear about, is all about bringing technology to the service of everything, not just people, but businesses. And now every entrepreneur anywhere in the world, particularly New York, with all of our advantages, can take advantage of this extraordinary power of the internet. And what the de Blasio administration has done with Digital.NYC is, for the first time anywhere in any city in the world, created something truly amazing, which is to pull together the entire tech industry in New York City, every single piece of it, every single component, every organization, every person, every event and activity, and make it totally accessible for free in real time, 24/7, to everybody and anybody. Let's take a look. Oops.
New York City is the fastest growing tech startup community in the world.
New York City is the most dynamic, dense, creative, exciting, diverse city in the country.
One of the biggest benefits of New York City is...
Bring it back and let's restart. Get the video here, can we see?
Louder.
Let's There you go.
New York City is the fastest growing tech startup community in the world.
New York City is the most dynamic, dense, creative, exciting, diverse city in the country.
One of the biggest benefits of New York City is the diversity of what's happening here.
There's fashion, there's art, finance.
So much of the tech scene touches every industry in New York City.
New York is a place where people come and they get stuff done.
People here are building real businesses that affect real people.
New York City has always been the most exciting place in the world to start a business. That's not new news.
Digital.NYC is a public-private partnership. It's really the first time anybody has connected all the pieces of the tech ecosystem.
We're bigger than the sum of our community when you know that the government and the mayor have your back.
As a startup founder, people that I meet are constantly asking me, where can I find a list of all the best startups in the city? It's going to be real-time, active. We're actually bringing together the tech ecosystem into one place.
Digital.NYC really enables that growth by creating community.
New York City is making Digital.NYC the connective tissue for the entire tech community of New York City.
That it would be this awesome portal as a way to kind of bring folks together so that we know we are in fact a community.
Digital.NYC is something that we need.
Wow, I wish that existed when we were first starting.
They've done a lot of the legwork for you.
Truly, as a New Yorker, I couldn't be prouder of my city and more excited about the future.
News,
Startups,
Events,
Jobs,
investors,
Resources,
Maps, courses,
workspaces,
incubators,
accelerators, videos.
blogs.
It's all here in one place. That's Digital.NYC.
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 New York City's hub for tech and startups.
Pretty darn cool, huh? So what I'm going to do is take just a couple of minutes to give you a taste, just a little dip of your tongue into what's going on here, and hopefully you will all go back and try it. Wi-Fi and 4G isn't all that great in here, so when you get out of here, go, after you hear the panels, go and take a look. It's digital.nyc, not .nyc.com. New York City has its own top-level domain of .nyc. It's one of the first cities in the world to get that. And so digital.nyc is where all of this takes place. So let's go through a quick look. All right. This is the home page. All this stuff is right there. One click, one page. A quick overview of everything up to date, in real time, updated multiple times a day, gives you quick access. You want to have your finger on the pulse of what's going on here in the city? This is it. So now let's go deep dive in the site and see what you can find at Digital.NYC. First of all, you've got the ultimate map. Now for many years, the city had a digital map which showed a number of the super duper high tech companies, the names you heard about. But what this has now is everything. The goal is to have every single tech company in the city of New York, thousands and thousands of them, along with every single job in the tech space, as well as every single event. All you can map it. You want to see what's going on in Harlem? You just zoom into Harlem and there you go. And what's happening here is amazing. I was at the opening a few weeks ago of Co-Found Harlem. I mean, you've got accelerators, you've got incubators, you've got all this kind of stuff here. And you can see what's going on in the neighborhood. And the reason we have all this stuff is because under the hood, Digital.NYC has this complete database of every single startup in New York City. And if for somehow we manage to leave out your startup, add it yourself. You can come right here, click the button, put your information in, and it'll be right in here. So right now, there are literally, I think as of today, there are 6,000 or 7,000 startups listed in here, and we are proactively trying to get everybody else on here. So when you have all the startups here, on top, now you can then do other things like curate them. So across the top, you can see collections. This is a list of all the startups. These are collections, whether they are collections of startups in the EDC's Big Apple Big Apps competition, or the NYC Venture Fellows program, or IBM's Global Entrepreneur program, or the Made in New York program, or the Co-Found Harlem Accelerator. You can have all kinds of curated selections here. And when you deep dive, what do you get? You don't just get a listing of the website, you have the full profile of the company. So companies can put all their information here that they want to show everybody. Your explainer video, this is Ofo, who is an amazing entrepreneur. You've got your description of what you're doing, your name, your logo, your management team, and you're searchable by keyword and location and everything else. See, don't see your startup, add it right there, okay? So you have startups. You have all the startups. You have collections of startups. You have investors, all the investors across the top. Every competition, business competitions, business plan competitions, things happening in accelerator programs, things happening in universities and the like. You can see, and many of these things are for grants and free money and prizes to help fund a business going on out here. Okay, you want to get involved and be active and find events like this in here, although somehow you managed all to find this on your own, I think. But what you have here is a coordinated, comprehensive list of everything that is happening in the entire New York City tech ecosystem. We're pulling in data here. By the way, this entire site is fed live in real time from well over a dozen different API feeds. So we're getting things here from Meetup.com, from Eventbrite, from General Assembly, from Charlie O'Donnell's list, from all kinds of Startup Digest. All kinds of data feeds are in here. If you have an event and it's not listed on here, put it in yourself and add it here. So everything will be found. All right, you want a job in this world? We got a coordinated list here, a comprehensive list pulled together from multiple job sources, from Startup Hire and the Muse and a bunch of other folks in here. These are jobs in New York City's tech sector. And as the mayor had said when he kicked this off, these are jobs in tech companies, obviously, but also tech jobs in traditional non-tech companies and non-tech jobs in tech companies. So you sort of cover the waterfront over here, as well as all kinds of information about how to get a job, how to prepare your resume, how to do your job search and the like. Don't see a job? You can add it. You want to get ready for a job? You want to take a class? Well, we have every single class and course in the startup tech sector here in New York City. This is sourced from Flatiron Partnership, from General Assembly, from CourseHorse, which has aggregated all of the classes in New York City. You can search by industry. You can search by keyword, by type of job, by type of class, and you can, in many cases, sign up directly from the site itself. All right, you want to find a place to work. Well, we have all of the co-working spaces over here. These are the giant ones, such as WeWork, which have thousands and thousands of square feet, all the way down to a spare office in somebody's office where they have 2 desks available for a month, courtesy of our friends at Pivot Desk, who are supplying us for a feed for that. You can add a space in here if you have extra space in here. You want to find a space. In many cases, you can click and get it right from here. But what if you want a more structured program? Oh, well, that's okay. We have every accelerator and incubator program in New York City, including the ones that are up here. You can find, these are programs that are either full support programs with office space or 3-month cohort-based programs with training and mentoring. Again, you can find everything here. There are accelerators by industry and by location and by region and the like. You want to know, how do I get started in this world? Well, we've pulled together a ton of resources. So EDC over the years has got a lot of resources about starting businesses. The New York City Small Business Services Administration has put a lot of stuff about how do you get permits in New York, how do you start a business in New York. IBM has put an enormous amount of work into their whole global entrepreneur program. How do entrepreneurs get started? How do you use Watson? You'll hear more about that, an amazing technology in here. We've got videos that we've been creating about how do you get a company financed and how do you find angel investors and venture capitalists. All here, all available in the resource portal. All right, you want more? Well, you can stay up to date on all the news. And we pull in news from hundreds of sources, all the major newspapers and media outlets about what's happening in New York. Not only do you have the news stories updated multiple times a day with a full-time editor, and these are all stories about the tech industry here in New York City, you also have all the blogs. If you don't like to read mainstream, read alternatives. So you have every New York City major tech blog, whether we're talking about Minerva Tantoko or the city's new CTO, whether you're talking about people like Fred Wilson, venture capitalist, Sandy Carter from IBM, they're all here. We got everybody's tweets on here, and if that's not enough, we got every video. It's the whole video section. So all the videos, pitch videos from companies, videos from the EDC, videos from IBM, videos from everybody about what's going on here. This is an extraordinary site. This really, it is hard to overstate how important this is. This is the first time in the world that any one city has pulled together its entire tech sector, its entire startup world here. New York City had it. It has it first. It's a role model for the rest of the world, and it is showing what an extraordinary, vibrant city we have, and we are delighted that everybody here is a part of it. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Bruce Swede. I'm from IBM. I'm the program director for startup and business development for New York City, and I'm happy to have everybody here tonight. Great turnout. It's just simply amazing. I've been on tour now with these guys for a while, and it's getting a little bit to be old hat, but when I see new faces and just the warmth of the audience and everybody wanting to engage, I think it's great. So I wanted to start off by setting the stage, kind of talking a little bit about resources and looking at it from a developer startup perspective. and really add on to what David had talked about in terms of Digital.NYC, and it really is a great site. Anytime you can go to some place and have one-stop shopping, go there, right? It just really makes your life a lot easier. So if you're starting out as a business and you really want to develop it, there's really not a better time than doing it now. Why? Well, number one, you can get co-location space for next to nothing, right? In some cases, I've seen business models where people that are in real estate offer space to developers, startups for a year at a time, with the condition that if they make it big and they start making money, they move upstairs and then they rent space. So this is great, right? We can get free space or space at low cost. Then you've got the ability to go and get trained fairly quickly through code academies and different schools like that. Back in the day, if you wanted to get involved in programming, a lot of times typically you had to go away to a 4-year school. Maybe you need to get a master's in computer science. Now you've got an ability to go to a 4-6 week training period and really gain those skills, whether it be in Java or maybe you want to program in other languages. You can go do that fairly quickly. Now, in addition to that, you've got companies like IBM that are providing these rich resources in the cloud environment. So the cloud environment that IBM offers is called Bluemix, and Bluemix essentially gives you access to key technologies, everything from big data, you may have heard of Hadoop and some of the things you can do there, to the Internet of Things, so accessing and working with sensor data and those types of things, to Watson on the other end. And we also offer third-party software. So if you want to work with MongoDB or you want to work with mobile-specific applications, you can leverage our mobile-first technology, or Cloudant, which is a mobile database that runs on both the Apple iOS operating system as well as Android. So all the tools are there, available, again, free of charge. If you go out to digital.nyc/IBM Cloud, you'll see a landing page there to get more information on that. But more importantly, we offer programs to support as you move forward with this technology. As an example, we have the IBM Global Entrepreneur Program for Cloud Startups. And there we offer up to $120K per year for startups to get advantage in terms of data services on our cloud platform. So roughly, if you do the math right, that's $10K per month. That's a pretty good deal. You'll find out it's actually the best in the industry. It is money there for the taking. I do, believe it or not, get beat up by my executive team that we don't have enough people taking advantage of that. So every chance I get, I evangelize it. It's free money. You have nothing to lose. Put in the form, fill out the paperwork, takes 5 minutes. We'll be your advocate. My team is here to help you guys be successful. We do provide office hours. Right now, we're based out of a WeWork location on 42nd Street. And obviously, as the team grows, we'll have hopefully locations in each of the boroughs and go from there. But in the meantime, please come down on Tuesdays from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock. We have open office hours. We'd love to sit down and work with you guys. If you want us to meet you here, that's fine. Wherever your location or business is, just let us know, and we'll be happy to hop in a cab and come local. So reach out, figure out what the tools that you can leverage. If you have any questions, whether it's a business type of thing or how do you go to market, because it isn't just about the technology, right? As a startup, fine, you get the technology, you start to develop your application, your solution. Now you're like, oh, what do we do now, right? We want to go to market. How do we meet with enterprise clients? How do we meet with mid-market clients? Maybe you want to work with the government, right? What are the connections there? So all these things we can help broker. I can't, again, encourage you guys enough. If you're thinking about starting a business, or maybe you just started one, really go at it, because this is a time really to take advantage. And then last but not least, we're involved in a lot of the city activities in terms of various hackathons and meetups. So as an example, recently we just did the New York Tech meetup, and David Barnes from IBM did a good demonstration leveraging Bluemix and Internet of Things. We were also involved in the latest NASA hackathon that happened last weekend. And we have an upcoming Watson hackathon where they're giving away up to $25,000 worth of prizes. That's coming up on May 4th and 5th, and that's actually, again, you can go to digital.nyc to find out more about it. So this is, again, the beauty, back to close here quickly on what David pointed out. You don't have to go to multiple different places to find all this information. It's in one repository. click it, find it out. If you have any questions, feel free, like I said, reach out to us directly. We'll be outside at a table to answer any questions you may have, provide you with additional information. So thank you.
In case you didn't get that, that's $10,000 a month in free services from IBM available to everybody as part of this whole platform. So the mayor provides you with free broadband, and you've got this free, wonderful site, and you got IBM providing you free consulting services and free software and free cloud services. What's not to lose? And now the man of the hour, Eric Gertler.
Thank you. I should let you know that David and I spent a year together developing this site. This is how he is every single day. I just want you to know. And, as Bruce and David said, we've done these panels in all 5 boroughs. This is by far the biggest, the best crowd that we've had, the best energy. So thank you. And I have to thank Commissioner Clyburn for helping to bring out everybody. What a great talk. And thank her for the service that she's doing to our country. So thank you, Commissioner Clyburn. Thank you, Ben Callis, for your opening remarks. I also just want to point out a new member of EDC who joined EDC in the last 2 weeks, who's also a dear friend who I'd known for over 20 years before she joined the EDC, and she's actually standing, so it's a perfect time. Valerie Kennedy, who's our new, she's got a great title, Senior Vice President of Diversity, Innovation, and Strategy.
Woo!
So,
what a combination.
And of all things, she's sitting next to the one person who I know really, really well here, Nakia, who she and I worked together about 8 years ago. So, and then I think I'd be remiss without pointing out 2 amazingly committed, hardworking New York citizens. I don't know where they find the time to do all these things. Bruce Lincoln and Clayton Banks, thank you for everything that you do. I had the privilege of being in this space about 6 months ago. It just keeps on getting better and better. Bruce and Clayton are involved in everything. And as Clayton pointed out, Bruce is part of the broadband task force that Maya Wiley is leading. They've been in our offices all the time thinking about different ideas, and it's just great to see the energy out here. I was in a meeting at downtown, just outside, next to City Hall, and there were a bunch of techies and some government officials, and we were talking about the term Silicon Alley. And the deputy mayor has been on the record saying we can't call it Silicon Alley. New York City is more than just an alley. We're everywhere, and yeah. But and we said, we started talking about how alley is too small, but should we change the name? And we brought up the point that alley is really a passageway, that it's not just an alley, but it's a connector to everywhere. And then, as we were still discussing, someone brought up and they said, well, what about Silicon Harlem? I mean, they get it. They understand it. Why do we need to, change the name Silicon? And it was based on, everything that Bruce and Clayton had done. It sort of convinced us that, technology is alive and growing really, really well all over the city, and certainly here in Harlem. From a city perspective, there's a lot of work that we're doing up here. We have, just in no particular order, we started with Samsia here in the front row, Harlem Biospace, to help develop young life science companies. And they actually spun out a great program called Hypothekids up here as well. There's the Harlem Garage, which is another working space on 118 and Frederick Douglass. So we've been part of that, which is great to be part of that. We're continuing to look at, and we'll announce a bunch of step-out spaces because we're already seeing companies that are growing here and need more space, and we hear it, and we're involved in looking for additional space up here for growing companies. And I think the word of the day, and we heard it loud and clear, it's broadband. I'm going to talk a little bit later about all the things we're doing, but up here between 110th and 138th that the city was doing with the Glenn Furman Foundation, it is and we're building out, it's the largest continuous free Wi-Fi area in the world up here. So lots of great things going on. Lots of clapping, it's good. So the mayor had a very bold vision for technology. He said he wanted New York City to be the most innovative and the most tech-friendly city in the world. And I can say that technology has infused, and our focus on technology has infused all that we've been doing within this administration. At the EDC, where I'm an executive vice president, our focus is to make sure that New York City remains the globally competitive, the most globally competitive city in the world, but at the same time, making sure that we're creating opportunity for all New Yorkers. And the equity part of our mission is extremely important in everything that we do. And so, within the EDC, we are continuously thinking about, how do we create good jobs? How do we support industry ecosystems? And how do we make sure that innovation is happening everywhere in this city? As David pointed out, tech is alive and on fire in this city. $4 billion of investments went into the technology sector last year. That's $1 billion every quarter. There's now close to 300,000 New Yorkers working in technology. And it continues to be the fastest growing sector, not just here in New York City, but anywhere in the United States. So that just goes to show you that technology has really taken over this city. It's 5 boroughs. That's the way we want it. We want it focused everywhere, and we want to make sure that, again, all New Yorkers have an opportunity to be part of this wave. Very quickly, we think about technology in 3 different buckets. We think about talent, we think about the infrastructure that's required, and we think about community and innovation. So I'm just going to give a few little highlights so that we can have a conversation. But in areas like talent, we launched last year the Tech Talent Pipeline. It's a $10 million project with the private sector to make sure that we're training over the next 3 years, training New Yorkers to be skilled for these new jobs of the 21st century. Now, in government, we always come up with all these sort of similar names. We also have something called the Tech Talent Draft, which is in which we take tech companies to universities in New York City, like CUNY, to make sure that we connect students graduating with all of the entrepreneurial companies in New York City. And of course, many of you, I think, have heard about the Applied Science Initiative, in which we brought Cornell Tech to New York. I mean, it's also happening at Columbia and NYU and Carnegie Mellon. But really, it's all about developing and doubling the number of applied science graduates in New York City, the number of applied science professors. And we calculate that over the next 25 years, there'll be over a $30 billion economic development increase in the city by training the next generation of New Yorkers in this city. In terms of infrastructure, as an agency, we've launched and supported 16 different incubators. We recognize that when you build companies, it's expensive. We want to make sure that we're creating collaborative spaces where you can work together, where you can learn from each other, and where we can keep the rent down so that you're spending money on building your idea and not on rent. And of course, on broadband, there's a lot of things that we're doing as an administration. We've talked about the broadband task force. We've talked about some of these wireless corridors. What we're doing with payphones and converting payphones into hotspots to make sure that we've got free Wi-Fi around the city is really going to make sure that New York City remains the leader in technology and broadband. This is an absolutely amazing initiative, and we're going to be converting payphones in all 5 boroughs throughout the city. And then lastly, in terms of community and innovation, we have, which we'll announce in June, the next iteration of our Big Apps competition. This is a competition that started off on having New Yorkers leverage public data to help New Yorkers and help New York solve problems. We now realize that we've moved beyond that, and we've moved beyond any form of using any type of device. And now this year, it's about making sure that we leverage and rely on New Yorkers across the city to solve some of the big challenges that we'll put forward. And we know that the best ideas aren't just coming from government. They're coming from you, the citizens here in New York, to help us figure out the challenges that we face in the 21st century. I can run through a lot of different things. We are, all government websites are going to become mobile. We're looking at our 311 system and adding social data to it. we're diversifying the economy and thinking about how do we ensure that we've got a hyphen tech economy that leads the world in fintech, in real estate tech, in construction tech, in healthcare technology, everything. And all of this comes together in the platform that we've created with Gus and David Rose in Digital.NYC, which really brings everything together. So I'm going to stop there. I'm happy to answer any questions, but thank you all for coming out here tonight.
All right. Thank you, Eric. All right, so
I got one last thing, short thing, and that is when Digital.NYC was launched by the mayor on October 1st in a big press conference. It was because it's such a standout thing. It was covered by all kinds of media all over the world. There were over 1,000 press articles and mentions online, on blogs, on newspapers, everything else. But by far, hands down, the absolute best coverage of the entire launch on the platform was the Harlem Times. And so Paul Jackson should get a hand for the Harlem Times.
Yeah.
And I noticed as I came
You'll see Paul later.
I noticed as I came in that there are copies of the Harlem Times right outside with the whole issue about Digital.NYC. And so if you have any questions, there are in-depth articles and coverage about the site and EDC and IBM and the mayor and what's going on and everything that's happening here. So it's absolutely worth picking up a copy as you leave.
All right. So we're running a little tiny bit late, so I can only take a couple questions. Does anybody have a question? Okay, right here. Yeah. And I could repeat it.
Intervene is an ed tech product that will help counselors pair students up with community resources via an online portal. And so one of the things I was thinking about for Web 2.0 is using IBM Watson and the idea of predictive algorithms to find these resources for students basically based on what was inputted in the beginning of the school year. So the issue, or what I'm concerned about, is will there be pushback because you're collecting certain data about the students, about their likes and dislikes, and has IBM Watson already worked it out with school systems to be able to be used by many of the ed tech communities now? Thank you.
Sure. So that's a great question. And so the way it works right now, if you look at Bluemix, we offer a couple of different ways to access and do that type of predictive analytics. When you get into the Watson side, it's more of the cognitive computing, so that takes it to sort of another level. There's not an issue right now because that data is held securely. There's not an intermingling of data. Data is kept separately. So from that perspective, I'm not aware. I'd have to look into what they've done from a student perspective in working with Watson explicitly. Obviously on Watson right now, a lot of the work that's been done with applications are in the medical field. We've done stuff in retail distribution, and you've probably heard of Chef Watson as well on the cooking side. But certainly I can, see me after the event here, and I'll be able to research that a little bit more for you. But there is, again, security on the data, and there are a couple of different alternatives in terms of predictive analytics, depending on what you want to do, what types of things you want to analyze.
All right, yeah, follow up. All right, one more. Right over here. Yep.
Hi, my name is Chico. College, but for the last couple of months, I've had tested a couple of weeks ago.
I'm going to repeat the question.
Okay. Now, for the last couple of months, I've been working on an accelerator that's focused on what I call. My name is Chike. Is that a little better now? Okay. I said for the last couple of months, I've been working on an accelerator that's focused on what I call untapped communities. So minorities, women, entrepreneurs who are veterans, LGBT, and all that stuff. And everything is all set. The goal is to pilot this summer, except that there's a huge barrier to capital to afford these startups to, start up, I would say. And technically, what I've done was I've partnered with Kiva Zip, who has agreed to provide some loans, startup loans, interest-free, that they don't have to pay back for 3 years. And while this is great incentive to them to start up, it will be great to have, the capital that says, hey, here's some capital to do some work or, do what you want to do. The question now is to Mr. Gertler. I don't know if I said your name correct. What is the city or state doing to ensure that there are more minimal, I would say, barriers to capital for untapped communities. And Mr. Rose, how do we get this money from investors? I know you are, the super angel investor. How do we get some money to these startups, even for equity?
Okay, Eric, you want to start? Or? Okay, sorry. All right. So the bad news is that getting funding, equity funding for companies is competitive. It's extremely competitive. In fact, venture capitalists only invest in 1 out of every 400 companies that approach them for funding. Angel investors are a little better, about 10 times as good. They invest in 1 out of 40 companies that approach them for funding. That's the bad news. The better news, however, is that there are government programs. So the U.S. government has set aside money. Every agency that has a big budget is required by law to provide grants for startup companies called Small Business Innovation Research Grants and Small Business Technology Transfer Grants that provide no strings attached money, free money, up to $750,000 in 2 tranches for companies that are doing things that are sort of good for society and are pre-commercial viability. And the interesting thing is that the odds of getting those kind of funding, if you're the kind of company that is in their area, is actually 10 times as good as getting money from angels. So it's actually 1 in 4 odds of getting money from an SBIR grant if you're in that area. But the best news of all is that the reason there is all this competition out there is because the cost of starting a company has been dropping like a rock for the last 20 years. When I started my first tech company here in New York, it took $20 million in venture capital before we could ship our internet product. My second company only took $2 million. When I started as an angel investor, the first company I invested in as an angel only took $200,000 to get the internet product shipped. 7 years ago, New York Angels, the angel group I belong to and founded, invested in a startup company also here in New York that was an online marketplace for video footage. And when they came to us with a complete website, generating revenue, with a full management team, the total cash they had put into the company was $20,000 to get up and running. And nowadays, the cost has continued to drop exponentially. And so if you have an idea for a website, if you want to sell something e-commerce, literally for under a couple of $1,000, you can get started, you can do prototyping, you can find tools online to get things started. And so while getting equity funding, which is free market capital to invest in that, can be tricky, and it's tough and it's very competitive, the tools are out there now to let 1,000 flowers bloom, actually, and the ones that ultimately are commercially successful can get funded. And the city, I know, has been working with accelerator programs and incubators and going out of its way in literally all the boroughs to create programs to encourage people to start companies and provide them tools and mentorship. Eric, you want to detail?
Yeah. So first of all, great question. And clearly as an administration, we're focused on making sure that there's startups, accelerators throughout the city, and ensuring that what you're doing can be replicated and supported everywhere throughout the city. The problem is that for most of our we don't put money directly into, sort of accelerators like that. But what we have done, and David alluded to it, is we've got, dozens of different programs that we use. And for the most part, we partner with the private sector who understand how to support companies much better than we do. I was an entrepreneur before I joined the government. And as the way the government works, it's much easier for us to partner with private sector, those that are in the industry that can be most helpful to you. And if you see me afterwards, I can direct you to a bunch of programs that we have that we can get some of your companies involved with and entrepreneurs, so that we can help them make sure that they succeed. So.
All right. Thank you so much, guys. One last round of applause here.